At the close of 3 weeks, I was able to quit my chamber and move about the house. And on the first occasion of my sitting up in the evening, I asked Catherine to read to me, because my eyes were weak. She selected one of her own favourites, and read to me steadily about an hour. Then came frequent questions. "Ellen, are you not tired? Hadn't you better lie down now? You'll be sick keeping up so long, Ellen." "No, my dear, I'm not tired," I returned continually. Perceiving me to be immovable, she essayed another method of showing her disrelish for her occupation. It changed to yawning and stretching, and, "Ellen, I'm tired." "Give over, then, and talk," I answered. The following night she seemed more impatient still, and on the third, from recovering my company, she complained of a headache and left me. I thought her conduct odd, and having remained alone a long while, I resolved on going and enquiring whether she were better, and asking her to come and lie on the sofa instead of upstairs in the dark. No Catherine could I discover upstairs, and none below. The servants affirmed they had not seen her. I listened at Mr. Edgar's door. All was silence. I returned to her apartment, extinguished the candle, and seated myself in the window. The moon shone bright. A sprinkling of snow covered the ground, and I reflected that she might possibly have taken it into her head to walk about the garden for refreshment. And, sure enough, I did detect a figure creeping along the inner fence of the park. But it was not my young mistress. On its emerging into the light, I recognized one of the grooms. He stood a considerable period, viewing the carriage road through the grounds, then started off at a brisk pace as if he had detected something, and reappeared presently, leading Mrs. Pony. And there she was, just dismounted and walking by its side. The man took his charge stealthily across the grass towards the stable. Cathy entered by the casement window of the drawing-room and glided noiselessly up to where I awaited her. She put the door gently to, slipped off her snowy shoes, untied her hat, and was proceeding, unconscious of my espionage, to lay aside her mantle, when I suddenly rose and revealed myself. The surprise petrified her an instant. She uttered an inarticulate exclamation, and stood fixed. "My dear Miss Catherine," I began, too vividly impressed by her recent kindness to break into a scold, "where have you been riding at this hour?" To the bottom of the park," she stammered. "And nowhere else?" I demanded. "No," was the muttered reply. "Oh, Catherine," I cried sorrowfully, "you know you have been doing wrong, or you wouldn't be driven to uttering an untruth to me. That does grieve me. I'd rather be 3 months ill than hear you frame a deliberate lie." She sprang forward, and, bursting into tears, threw her arms round my neck. "Well, Ellen, I'm so afraid of you being angry," she said. "Promise not to be angry, and you shall know the very truth. I hate to hide it. I've been to Wuthering Heights, Ellen, and I've never missed going a day since you fell ill, except thrice before, and twice after you left your room. I gave Michael, the groom, books and pictures to prepare Minnie every evening, and to put her back in the stable, and you mustn't scold him either, mind. I was at the Heights by 6:30, and generally stayed till 8:30, and then galloped home. Now, Ellen, you have heard all, and I can't be prevented from going to Wuthering Heights except by inflicting misery on 2 people, whereas, if you'll only not tell Papa, my going need disturb the tranquillity of none. You'll not tell, will you? It will be very heartless if you do." "Well, I'll make up my mind on that point by tomorrow, Miss Catherine," I said. "It requires some study, and so I'll leave you to your rest, and go think it over." Well, I thought it over aloud in my master's presence, walking straight from her room to his, and relating the whole story. Mr. Linton was alarmed and distressed more than he would acknowledge to me. In the morning Catherine learnt my betrayal of her confidence, and she learnt also that her secret visits were to end. In vain she wept and writhed against the interdict, and implored her father to have pity on Linton. All she got to comfort her was a promise that he would write and give him leave to come to the Grange when he pleased, but explaining that he must no longer expect to see Catherine at Wuthering Heights. These things happened last winter, Mr. Lockwood, sir, hardly more than a year ago. Last winter? I did not think at another 12 months' end I should be amusing a stranger to the family with relating them. Yet who knows how long you'll be a stranger? You're too young to rest always contented living by yourself, and I some way fancy no one could see Catherine Linton and not love her. You smile, but why do you look so lively and interested? Stop, my good friend, I cried. It may be very possible that I should love her, but would she love me? I doubt it too much to venture my tranquillity by running into temptation. And then my home is not here. I'm of the busy world, and to its arms I must return. Now, go on. Was Catherine obedient to her father's commands? Well, yes, she was. Her affection for him was still the chief sentiment in her heart. And he spoke without anger. He spoke in the deep tenderness of one who felt he was about to leave his treasure amid perils and foes, where his remembered words would be the only aid that he could bequeath to guide her. He said to me a few days afterwards, "I wish my nephew would write, Ellen, or call. Tell me sincerely what you think of Linton. Is he changed for the better, or is there a prospect of improvement as he grows a man?" "He's very delicate, sir," I replied, "and scarcely likely to reach manhood. But this I can say, he does not resemble his father, and if Miss Catherine had the misfortune to marry him, he would not be beyond her control unless she were extremely and foolishly indulgent. However, master, you'll have plenty of time to get acquainted with him and see whether he would suit her. It wants 4 years and more to his being of age." Spring advanced, yet my master gathered no real strength, though he resumed his walks in the grounds with his daughter. To her inexperienced notions this itself was a sign of convalescence, and then his cheek was often flushed and his eyes were bright. She felt sure of his recovering. Summer was already past its prime, when the master reluctantly yielded his assent to her entreaties, and Catherine and I set out on our first ride to join her cousin, Master Heathcliff. We had deferred our excursion till the afternoon, a golden afternoon of August. Every breath from the hill so full of life that it seemed whoever respired it, though dying, might revive. Master Heathcliff received us with great animation on this occasion, not the animation of high spirits, though, nor yet of joy. It looked more like fear. I was cogitating what the mystery might be, when, hearing a rustle, I looked up and saw Mr. Heathcliff almost close upon us. "It is something to see you so near to my house, Nelly. How are you at the Grange? Let us hear. The rumour goes," he added in a lower tone, "that Edgar Linton is on his deathbed. Perhaps they exaggerate his illness." "No, my master is dying," I replied. "It is true enough. A sad thing it will be for us all, but a blessing for him." Linton had sunk prostrate in another paroxysm of helpless fear, caused by his father's sudden glance towards him, I suppose. There was nothing else to produce such humiliation. Mr. Heathcliff advanced and lifted him to lean against a ridge of turf. "Now," he said with curbed ferocity, "I'm getting angry, and if you don't command that paltry spirit of yours, damn you, get up directly." "I will, father," he panted. "Only let me alone, or I shall faint. I've done as you wished, I'm sure. Catherine will tell you that I have been cheerful. Keep by me, Catherine. Give me your hand." "Take mine," said his father. "Stand on your feet. There, now. She'll lend you her arm. That's right, look at her. You would imagine I was the devil himself, Miss Linton, to excite such horror. Be so kind as to walk home with him, will you? He shudders if I touch him." "Linton, dear," whispered Catherine, "I can't go to Wuthering Heights. Papa has forbidden me. He'll not harm you. Why are you so afraid?" Linton clung to his cousin and implored her to accompany him with a frantic importunity that admitted no denial. We reached the threshold. Catherine walked in, and I stood waiting till she had conducted the invalid to a chair, expecting her out immediately, when Mr. Heathcliff, pushing me forward, exclaimed, "My house is not stricken with the plague, Nelly.
and I have a mind to be hospitable today. Sit down and allow me to shut the door."
He shut and locked it also. I started.
"You shall have tea before you go home," he added. "I'm by myself. Hareton is gone with some cattle to the Leas, and Zillah and Joseph are off on a journey of pleasure, and though I'm used to being alone, I'd rather have some interesting company if I can get it."
"I'm not afraid of you," exclaimed Catherine. She stepped close up, her black eyes flashing with passion and resolution. "Give me that key. I will have it," she said. "I wouldn't eat or drink here if I were starving." Mr. Heathcliff rose and expeditiously made the tea himself. The cups and saucers were laid ready. He poured it out and handed me a cup.
"Wash away your spleen," he said, "and help your own naughty pet and mine. It is not poison, though I prepared it. I'm going out to seek your horses."
Our first thought on his departure was to force an exit somewhere. We tried the kitchen door, but that was fastened outside. We looked at the windows. They were too narrow even for Cathy's little figure. "Master Linton," I cried, seeing we were regularly imprisoned, "you know what your diabolical father is after, and you shall tell us, or I'll box your ears." "Yes, Linton, you must tell," said Catherine. "It was for your sake I came, and it will be wickedly ungrateful if you refuse." "Oh, give me some tea. I'm thirsty, and then I'll tell you," he answered. "Mrs. Dean, go away. I don't like you standing over me." "Now, Catherine, you are letting your tears fall into my cup. I won't drink that. Give me another." Catherine pushed another to him and wiped her face. I felt disgusted at the little wretch's composure, since he was no longer in terror for himself. The anguish he had exhibited on the moor subsided as soon as ever he entered Wuthering Heights, so I guessed he had been menaced with an awful visitation of wrath if he failed in decoying us there, and that accomplished, he had no further immediate fears. "Papa wants us to be married," he continued after sipping some of the liquid, "and he knows your papa wouldn't let us marry now, and he's afraid of my dying if we wait. So we are to be married in the morning, and you are to stay here all night. And if you do as he wishes, you shall return home next day and take me with you." Heathcliff re-entered and approached the fire, where my mistress and I stood silent. "Mr. Heathcliff, please let me go home," said Catherine. "I promised to marry Linton. Papa would like me to, and I love him. And why should you wish to force me to do what I'll willingly do of myself?" "Let him dare to force you," I cried. "There's a law in the land, thank God there is, though we be in an out-of-the-way place. I'd inform if he were my own son, and it's felony without benefit of clergy."
"Silence, woman, to the devil with your clamour. I don't want you to speak. Miss Linton, I shall enjoy myself remarkably in thinking your father will be miserable. I shall not sleep for satisfaction."
Then he bid us go upstairs, through the kitchen to Zillah's chamber, and I whispered my companion to obey. Perhaps we might contrive to get through the window there, or into a garret, and out by its skylight. The window, however, was narrow like those below, and the garret trap was safe from our attempts, for we were fastened in as before. We neither of us lay down. Catherine took her station by the lattice and watched anxiously for morning, a deep sigh being the only answer I could obtain to my frequent entreaties that she would try to rest. Well, I seated myself in a chair and rocked to and fro, passing harsh judgment on my many derelictions of duty, from which, it struck me then, all the misfortunes of all my employers sprang. It was not the case in reality, I am aware, but it was in my imagination that dismal night, and I thought Heathcliff himself less guilty than I. At 7 o'clock he came and inquired if Miss Linton had risen. She ran to the door immediately and answered, "Yes."
"Here, then,"
he said, opening it and pulling her out. I rose to follow, but he turned the lock again. I demanded my release.
"Be patient. I'll send up your breakfast in a while."
I thumped on the panels and rattled the latch angrily, and Catherine asked why was I still shut up. He answered I must try to endure it another hour, and they went away. I endured it 2 or 3 hours. At length I heard a footstep, not Heathcliff's.
"I brought you something to eat," said a voice. "Open the door."
Complying eagerly, I beheld Hareton laden with food enough to last me all day.
"Tuck it,"
he added, thrusting the tray into my hand. "Stay 1 minute," I began. "Nay," cried he, and retired, regardless of any prayers I could pour forth to detain him. And there I remained, enclosed, the whole day, and the whole of the next night, and another, and another. 5 nights and 4 days I remained altogether, seeing nobody but Hareton once every morning. And he was a model of a gaoler, surly and dumb, and deaf to every attempt at moving his sense of justice and compassion. On the 5th morning, or rather afternoon, a different step approached, lighter and shorter, and this time the person entered the room. It was Zillah. "Eh, dear Mrs. Dean, well, there is a talk about you at Gimmerton. I never thought, but you were sunk in the Black Horse Marsh, and Missy with you, till master told me you'd been found and he'd lodged you here." "Your master is a true scoundrel," I replied, "but he shall answer for it. He needn't have raised that tale. It shall be laid bare." I snatched my outdoor things and hastened below, for the way was free. As I hesitated whether to go off at once or return and seek my mistress, a slight cough drew my attention to the hearth. Linton lay on the settle, sole tenant, sucking a stick of sugar candy and pursuing my movements with apathetic eyes. "Where is Miss Catherine?" I demanded sternly. "Is she gone?" "No," he replied. "She's upstairs. She's not to go. We won't let her." "You won't let her, little idiot!" I exclaimed. "Direct me to her room immediately, or I'll make you sing out sharply." "Papa would make you sing out if you attempted to get there," he answered. "He says I'm not to be soft with Catherine. She's my wife, and it's shameful that she should wish to leave me. He says she hates me and wants me to die, that she may have my money, but she shan't have it, and she shan't go home. She never shall. She may cry and be sick as much as she pleases." "Is Mr. Heathcliff out?" I inquired, perceiving that the wretched creature had no power to sympathize with his cousin's mental tortures. "He's in the court," he replied, "talking to Dr. Kenneth, who says uncle is dying, truly at last. I'm glad, for I shall be master of the Grange after him, and Catherine always spoke of it as her house. It isn't hers, it's mine. Papa says everything she has is mine. All her nice books are mine. She offered to give me them and her pretty birds and her pony Minnie if I would get the key of our room and let her out, but I told her she had nothing to give. They were all mine." I considered it best to depart without seeing Mr. Heathcliff and bring a rescue from my young lady from the Grange. On reaching it, the astonishment of my fellow servants to see me, and their joy also, was intense, and when they heard that their little mistress was safe, 2 or 3 were about to hurry up and shout the news at Mr. Edgar's door. But I bespoke the announcement of it myself. How changed I found him, even in those few days. He lay an image of sadness and resignation, waiting his death. "Catherine is coming, dear master," I whispered. "She is alive and well, and will be here, I hope, tonight." I trembled at the first effects of this intelligence. He half rose up, looked eagerly round the apartment, and then sunk back in a swoon. As soon as he recovered, I related our compulsory visit and detention at the Heights. Well, having received his orders, I dispatched 4 men provided with serviceable weapons to demand my young lady of her gaoler. The 4 men came back unaccompanied. They brought word that Catherine was ill, too ill to quit her room, and Heathcliff would not suffer them to see her. I scolded the stupid fellows well for listening to that tale, which I would not carry to my master, resolving to take a whole bevy up to the Heights at daylight and storm it literally, unless the prisoner were quietly surrendered to us. Her father shall see her, I vowed, and vowed again, if that devil be killed on his own doorstones in trying to prevent it. Happily I was spared the journey and the trouble. I had gone downstairs at 3 o'clock to fetch a jug of water, and was passing through the hall with it in my hand, when a sharp knock at the front door made me jump. I put the jug on the banister, and hastened to admit the visitor. My own sweet little mistress sprung on my neck, sobbing, Ellen, is Papa alive?" "Yes," I cried, "yes, my angel, he is. God be thanked, you are safe with us again." I couldn't abide to be present at their meeting. I stood outside the chamber door a quarter of an hour, and hardly ventured near the bed then. All was composed, however. Catherine's despair was as silent as her father's joy. She supported him calmly in appearance, and he fixed on her features his raised eyes that seemed dilating with ecstasy. Well, he died blissfully, Mr. Lockwood. He died so. Kissing her cheek, he murmured, "I am going to her, and you, my darling child, shall come to us." Whether Catherine had spent her tears or whether the grief were too weighty to let them flow, she sat there dry-eyed till the sun rose. She sat till noon, and would have remained brooding over that deathbed, but I insisted on her coming away and taking some repose. The funeral was hurried over. Catherine, Mrs. Linton Heathcliff now, was suffered to stay at the Grange till her father's corpse had quitted it. She told me that her anguish had at last spurred Linton to incur the risk of liberating her. She heard the men I sent disputing at the door, and she gathered the sense of Heathcliff's answer. It drove her desperate, and Linton, who had been conveyed up to the little parlour soon after I left, was terrified into fetching the key before his father reascended. Catherine stole out before break of day. She dared not try the doors, lest the dog should raise an alarm. She visited the empty chambers and examined their windows, and, luckily lighting on her mother's, she got out easily of its lattice and onto the ground by means of the fir tree close by. Her accomplice suffered for his share in the escape, notwithstanding his timid contrivances. The evening after the funeral, my young lady and I were seated in the library when a servant rushed hastily in and said that devil Heathcliff was coming through the court should he fasten the door in his face. If we had been mad enough to order that proceeding, we had not time. He made no ceremony of knocking or announcing his name. He was master, and availed himself of the master's privilege to walk straight in without saying a word. The sound of our informant's voice directed him to the library. He entered, and, motioning him out, shut the door. Catherine had risen with an impulse to dash out when she saw him.
"Stop," he said, arresting her by the arm. "No more runnings away. Where would you go? I'm come to fetch you home, and I hope you'll be a dutiful daughter."
"I shall," said Catherine. "Linton is all I have to love in the world. I know he has a bad nature. He's your son. But I'm glad I've a better to forgive it. And I know he loves me, and for that reason I love him. Mr. Heathcliff, you have nobody to love you, and however miserable you make us, we shall still have the revenge of thinking that your cruelty arises from your greater misery. You are miserable, are you not? Lonely, like the devil, and envious like him. Nobody loves you. Nobody will cry for you when you die. I wouldn't be you." Catherine spoke with a kind of dreary triumph. Then she scornfully withdrew. In her absence I began to beg for Zilla's place at the Heights, offering to resign mine, but he would suffer it no account. He bid me be silent, and then, for the first time, allowed himself a glance around the room and a look at the pictures. Having studied Mrs. Linton's, he said,
"I shall have that home. Not because I need it, but—"
He turned abruptly to the fire and continued with what, for lack of a better word, I must call a smile.
"I'll tell you what I did yesterday. I got the sexton who was digging Linton's grave to remove the earth off her coffin lid, and I opened it. I thought once I would have stayed there. When I saw her face again, it is hers yet. He had hard work to stir me. But he said it would change if the air blew on it, and so I struck one side of the coffin loose and covered it up. Not Linton's side, damn him. I wish he'd been soldered in lead. And I bribed the sexton to pull it away when I'm laid there, and slide mine out too. I'll have it made so, and then by the time Linton gets to us, he'll not know which is which."
"You were very wicked, Mr. Heathcliff," I exclaimed. "Were you not ashamed to disturb the dead?"
"I disturbed nobody, Nelly. And I gave some ease to myself. I shall be a great deal more comfortable now, and you'll have a better chance of keeping me underground when I get there. Disturbed her? No. She has disturbed me night and day through 18 years. Incessantly, remorselessly, till yesternight. And yesternight I was tranquil. I dreamt I was sleeping the last sleep by that sleeper, with my heart stopped and my cheek frozen against hers. Mr. Heathcliff paused and wiped his forehead. His hair clung to it, wet with perspiration. His eyes were fixed on the red embers of the fire, and while he was so occupied, Catherine entered, announcing that she was ready. I watched them, from the window, walk down the garden. Heathcliff fixed Catherine's arm under his, though she disputed the act at first, evidently, and then with rapid strides he hurried her into the alley, whose trees concealed them. I have paid a visit to the Heights, but I have not seen her since she left. Joseph held the door in his hand when I called to ask after her, and wouldn't let me pass. I had a long talk with Zillah, though, about 6 weeks ago, a little before you came, one day when we foregathered on the moor, and this is what she told me. "The first thing Mrs. Linton did," she said, "on her arrival at the Heights, was to run upstairs without even wishing good evening to me and Joseph. She shut herself into Linton's room and remained till morning. Then, while the master and Earnshaw were at breakfast, she entered the house and asked all in a quiver if the doctor might be sent. Her cousin was very ill." "We know that," answered Heathcliff, "but his life is not worth a farthing, and I won't spend a farthing on him." "But I cannot tell how to do," she said. "If nobody will help, he'll die." At last, one night, she came boldly into my chamber and frightened me out of my wits by saying, "Tell Mr. Heathcliff that his son is dying. I'm sure he is this time. Get up instantly and tell him." I delivered Catherine's message. He cursed to himself, and in a few minutes came out with a lighted candle and proceeded to their room. I followed. Mrs. Heathcliff was seated by the bedside with her hands folded on her knees. Her father-in-law went up, held the light to Linton's face, looked at him and touched him, and afterwards he turned to her. "Now, Catherine," he said, "how do you feel?" She was dumb. "How do you feel, Catherine?" he repeated. "He's safe, and I'm free," she answered. "I should feel well, but," she continued with a bitterness she couldn't conceal, "you have left me so long to struggle against death alone that I feel and see only death. I feel like death." At first, on hearing this account from Zillah, I determined to leave my situation, take a cottage, and get Catherine to come and live with me. But Mr. Heathcliff would as soon permit that as he would set up Hareton in an independent house, and I can see no remedy at present, unless she could marry again, and that scheme it does not come within my province to arrange. And thus ended Mrs. Dean's story. I propose getting out on horseback in a day or two, and riding over to Wuthering Heights to inform my landlord that I shall spend the next 6 months in London, and if he likes he may look out for another tenant to take the place after October. I would not pass another winter here. So I went to the Heights, and my housekeeper entreated me to bear a little note from her to her young lady, and I did not refuse. Catherine was there, making herself useful in preparing some vegetables for the approaching meal. She looked more sulky and less spirited than when I had seen her first. She hardly raised her eyes to notice me, and continued her employment with the same disregard to common forms of politeness as before, never returning my bow and good morning by the slightest acknowledgment. Living among clowns and misanthropists, she probably cannot appreciate a better class of people when she meets them. With Mr. Heathcliff, grim and saturnine on one hand, and Hareton, absolutely dumb, on the other, I made a somewhat cheerless meal, and bid adieu early. I would have departed by the back way to get a last glimpse of Catherine and annoy old Joseph, but Hareton received orders to lead up my horse, and my host himself escorted me to the door, so I could not fulfil my wish. A year later, in September of 1802, I was invited to devastate the moors of a friend in the north, and on my journey to his abode I unexpectedly came within 15 miles of Gimmerton. The hostler at a roadside public house was holding a pail of water to refresh my horses, when a cart of very green oats, newly reaped, passed by, and he remarked, "Yon's fro Gimmerton. They're always 3 weeks after other folk with their harvest." "Gimmerton?" I repeated. My residence in that locality had already grown dim and dreamy. "Ah, I know. How far is it from this?" "Happened 14 mile o'er the hills in a rough road," he answered.
A sudden impulse seized me to visit Thrushcross Grange. I reached it before sunset and rode into the court. Under the porch a girl of 9 or 10 sat knitting, and an old woman reclined on the horse steps, smoking a meditative pipe. "Is Mrs. Dean within?" I demanded of the dame.
"Mistress Dean? Nay," she answered. "She doesn't abide here. She's up at the heights."
I turned away and made my exit, rambling leisurely along, with the glow of a sinking sun behind and the mild glory of a rising moon in front, one fading and the other brightening as I quitted the park and climbed the stony by-road branching off to Mr. Heathcliff's dwelling. I had neither to climb the gate or to knock. It yielded to my hand, and at the door sat my old friend Nelly Dean, sewing and singing a song. I advanced, and recognizing me directly, she jumped to her feet, crying, "Why, bless you, Mr. Lockwood! How could you think of returning this way? All shut up at Thrushcross Grange. You should have given us notice." "Oh, no, I depart again tomorrow," I answered. "And how are you transplanted here, Mrs. Dean? Tell me that." "Zillah left, and Mr. Heathcliff wished me to come soon after you went to London, and stay till you returned. But step in, pray. Have you walked from Gimmerton this evening?" "From the Grange," I replied, "and while they make me lodging-room there, I want to finish my business with your master, because I don't think of having another opportunity in a hurry." "What business, sir?" said Nelly, conducting me into the house. "He's gone out at present, and won't return soon." "About the rent," I answered. "Oh, then it is with Mrs. Heathcliff you must settle," she observed. "Or rather with me. She has not learnt to manage her affairs yet, and I act for her. There's nobody else." I looked surprised. "Ah, you have not heard of Heathcliff's death, I see," she continued. "Heathcliff dead?" I exclaimed, astonished. "How long ago?" 3 months since. But sit down and let me take your hat, and I'll tell you all about it. "I was summoned to Wuthering Heights within a fortnight of your leaving us," she said, and I obeyed joyfully for Catherine's sake. Well, my first interview with her grieved and shocked me. She had altered so much since our separation. Mr. Heathcliff did not explain his reasons for taking a new mind about my coming here. He only told me he wanted me, and he was tired of seeing Catherine. I must make the little parlour my sitting-room, and keep her with me. It was enough if he were obliged to see her once or twice a day. He grew more and more disinclined to society, and had almost banished Earnshaw out of his apartment. Well, owing to an accident at the commencement of March, Hareton became for some days a fixture in the kitchen. His gun burst while out on the hills by himself. A splinter cut his arm, and he lost a good deal of blood before he could reach home. The consequence was that perforce he was condemned to the fireside and tranquillity till he made it up again. On the morrow of that Monday, Hareton being still unable to follow his ordinary employments, my charge got downstairs before me and out into the garden, where she had seen her cousin performing some easy work, and when I went to bid them to come to breakfast, I saw she had persuaded him to clear a large space of ground from currant and gooseberry bushes, and they were busy planning together an importation of plants from the Grange. I was terrified at the devastation which had been accomplished in a brief half-hour. The black currant trees were the apple of Joseph's eye, and she had just fixed her choice of a flower-bed in the midst of them. Joseph appeared at the door, revealing by his quivering lip and furious eyes that the outrage committed on his precious shrubs was detected. He must have seen Cathy and her cousin about the spot before he examined it, for while his jaws worked like those of a cow chewing its cud, it rendered his speech difficult to understand.
"Is the fool drunk?"
asked Mr. Heathcliff.
"Hareton, is it you he's finding fault with?"
"I've pulled up 2 or 3 bushes," replied the young man, "but I'm going to set 'em again."
"And why have you pulled them up?"
Catherine wisely put in her tongue. "We want to plant some flowers there. I'm the only person to blame, for I wished him to do it."
"And who the devil gave you leave to touch a stick about the place?"
demanded her father-in-law, much surprised.
"And who ordered you to obey her?"
he added, turning to Hareton. The latter was speechless. His cousin replied, "You shouldn't grudge a few yards of earth for me to ornament when you have taken all my land."
"Your land, insolent slut, you never had any."
"And my money," she continued, returning his angry glare, biting a piece of crust, the remnant of her breakfast.
"Silence! Get done and begone."
and Hareton's land and his money. Hareton and I are friends now, and I shall tell him all about you." The master seemed confounded a moment. He grew pale and rose up, eyeing her all the while with an expression of mortal hate. "If you strike me, Hareton will strike you, so you may as well sit down."
"If Hareton raises his hand to me, I'll strike him to hell. Damnable witch, dare you pretend to rouse him against me? Off with her, do you hear? Fling her into the kitchen. I'll kill her, Ellendine, if you let her come into my sight again."
For some days after that, Mr. Heathcliff shunned meeting us at meals, yet he would not consent formally to exclude Hareton and Cathy. He had an aversion to yielding so completely to his feeling, choosing rather to absent himself, and eating once in 24 hours seemed sufficient sustenance for him. One night, after the family were in bed, I heard him go downstairs and out at the front door. I did not hear him re-enter, and in the morning I found he was still away. We were in April then. The weather was sweet and warm, the grass as green as showers and sun could make it, and the 2 dwarf apple trees near the southern wall in full bloom. After breakfast, Catherine insisted on my bringing a chair and sitting with my work under the fir trees at the end of the house, and she beguiled Hareton, who had perfectly recovered from his accident, to dig and arrange her little garden, which was shifted to that corner by the influence of Joseph's complaints. I was comfortably revelling in the spring fragrance around and the beautiful soft blue overhead when my young lady, who had run down near the gate to procure some primrose roots for a border, returned only half laden and informed us that Mr. Heathcliff was coming in. "And he spoke to me," she added with a perplexed countenance. "What did he say?" asked Hareton. "He told me to be gone as fast as I could. But he looked so different from his usual look that I stopped a moment to stare at him." "How?" "Why, almost bright and cheerful. No, almost nothing. Very much excited and wild and glad." "Night walking amuses him, then?" I remarked, affecting a careless manner, in reality as surprised as she was, and anxious to ascertain the truth of her statement, for to see the master looking glad would not be an everyday spectacle. I framed an excuse to go in. Heathcliff stood at the open door. He was pale and he trembled, yet certainly he had a strange, joyful glitter in his eyes that altered the aspect of his whole face. "Will you have some breakfast?" I said. "You must be hungry, rambling about all night." I wanted to discover where he had been, but I did not like to ask directly. "No, I'm not hungry," he answered, averting his head and speaking rather contemptuously, as if he guessed I was trying to divine the occasion of his good humour. He did not quit the house again that afternoon, and no one intruded on his solitude till at 8 o'clock I deemed it proper, though unsummoned, to carry a candle and his supper to him. He was leaning against the ledge of an open lattice, but not looking out. His face was turned to the interior gloom. Oh, Mr. Lockwood, I cannot express what a terrible start I got by the momentary view. Those deep black eyes, that smile and ghastly paleness. It appeared to me not Mr. Heathcliff, but a goblin, and in my terror I let the candle bend towards the wall, and it left me in darkness.
"It is not my fault that I cannot eat or rest. I assure you it is through no settled designs. I'll do both as soon as I possibly can. But you might as well bid a man struggling in the water rest within arm's length of the shore. I must reach it first, and then I'll rest. I've done no injustice, and I repent of nothing. I'm too happy, and yet I'm not happy enough. My soul's bliss kills my body, but does not satisfy itself."
The next afternoon, while Joseph and Hareton were at their work, he came into the kitchen again, and with a wild look bid me come and sit in the house. He wanted somebody with him. I declined, telling him plainly that his strange talk and manner frightened me, and I had neither the nerve nor the will to be his companion alone.
"I believe you think me a fiend. Something too horrible to live under a decent roof."
Then, turning to Catherine, who was there, and who drew behind me at his approach, he added half sneeringly,
"Will you come, Chuck? I'll not hurt you. No, to you I've made myself worse than the devil. Well, there is one who won't shrink from my company. By God, she's relentless. Oh, damn it!" It is unutterably too much for flesh and blood to bear, even mine."
He solicited the society of no one more. At dusk he went into his chamber. Through the whole night and far into the morning we heard him groaning and murmuring to himself. Hareton was anxious to enter, but I bid him fetch Dr. Kenneth, and he should go in and see him. When he came, and I requested admittance and tried to open the door, I found it locked, and Heathcliff bid us be damned. He was better, and would be left alone. So the doctor went away. The following evening was very wet. Indeed, it poured down till day dawn, and as I took my morning walk round the house I observed the master's window swinging open, and the rain driving straight in. He cannot be in bed, I thought. Those showers would drench him through. He must either be up or out. But I'll make no more ado. I'll go boldly and look. Having succeeded in obtaining entrance with another key, I ran to unclose the panels, for the chamber was vacant. Quickly pushing them aside, I peeped in. Mr. Heathcliff was there, laid on his back. His eyes met mine, so keen and fierce, I started. And then he seemed to smile. I could not think him dead, but his face and throat were washed with rain, the bedclothes dripped, and he was perfectly still. The lattice, flapping to and fro, had grazed one hand that rested on the sill. No blood trickled from the broken skin, and when I put my fingers to it, I could doubt no more. He was dead, and stark. We buried him, to the scandal of the whole neighbourhood, as he had wished. Earnshaw and I, the sexton, and 6 men to carry the coffin, comprehended the whole attendance. The 6 men departed when they had let it down into the grave. We stayed to see it covered. Hareton, with a streaming face, dug green sods and laid them over the brown mould himself. At present it is as smooth and verdant as its companion mounds, and I hope its tenant sleeps as soundly. But the country folks, if you ask them, would swear on their Bible that he walks. There are those who speak to having met him near the church, and on the moor, and even within this house. Idle tales, you'll say, and so say I. Yet that old man by the kitchen fire affirms he has seen the 2 on 'em looking out of his chamber window on every rainy night since his death. And for my own part, I still don't like being out in the dark now, and I don't like being left by myself in this grim house. I cannot help it. I shall be glad when we leave it and shift to the Grange." "You are going to the Grange, then?" I said. "Yes, as soon as they are married, and that will be on New Year's Day." "And who will live here, then?" "Why, Joseph will take care of the house, and perhaps a lad to keep him company. They will live in the kitchen, and the rest will be shut up." "For the use of such ghosts as choose to inhabit it," I observed. My walk home was lengthened by a diversion in the direction of the kirk. When, beneath its walls, I perceived decay had made progress even in 7 months. Many a window showed black gaps deprived of glass, and slates jutted off here and there beyond the right line of the roof, to be gradually worked off in coming autumn storms. I sought and soon discovered the 3 headstones on the slope next the moor. The middle one, grey and half buried in heath. Edgar Linton's only, harmonized by the turf creeping up its foot, and Heathcliff's still bare. I lingered round them under that benign sky, watched the moths fluttering among the heath and harebells, listened to the soft wind breathing through the grass, and wondered how anyone could ever imagine unquiet slumbers for the sleepers in that quiet earth.